Call to order. Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, roll call.
Mayor Pro Tem Bouchard.
Present.
Mayor Boulay.
Excused.
Councillor Champlin.
Present.
Councillor Fennessy.
Present.
Councillor Grady Sexton.
Present.
Councillor Keach.
Here.
Councillor Kennison.
Here.
Councillor Cutoff.
Here.
Councillor Mattson.
Here.
Councillor McNamara.
Here.
Councillor Nyan.
Present.
Councillor Pierce.
Present.
Councillor Rice Hawkins.
Here.
Councillor Todd.
Here.
And Councillor Werner.
Here.
All right. Quorum. May I have an approval of meeting minutes? And if there's no objection, August 9th, August 23rd, and August 30th.
So moved. Second.
Any comments, any changes? Yes, Councilor
I
Rice
will not be
Hawkins.
voting on August 9th because I was absent for that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes for August 9th, August 23rd, and August 30th, with the exception of Councilor Rice Hawkins? Say yay.
Aye.
Any against? Seeing none, the minutes pass. And then our next item is the City Council action relative to the city manager's employment contract. And I would like to call on Councillor Cutoff to give an update as she was the chair of the committee.
Thank you very much. I'd like to make a motion that we extend the city manager's contract for another year. That is our time limit according to our charter and our charge. This year's contract includes a 2.75 raise, a compensation raise for Mr. Espel. I would like to add to it that all of our unions received a 2.75 raise for their 3-year contracts. Last year, Mr. Espel, given the challenges that we had under COVID, the uncertainty, the agility that we needed to have fiscally throughout that year, he took no raise. As a leader of our organization, we should be super proud that we have a city manager that really steps up and takes the lead and says, you know what, I'm going to pass this year. And for that, our council this year decided that despite the challenges we still have, we need to reward the city manager because he has done an excellent job. With that, in our city evaluation, we decided, the end results was that his performance was outstanding. But per the charter, we can only give him a rating of satisfactory. And with that, I would make a motion that we accept the contract with that 2.75 compensation raise for Mr. Espel.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Cutoff, seconded by Councilor Kennison. Any discussion? Any comments? Councilor Nyan.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I don't know what else I can add that Councilor Cutoff hasn't already said, but absolutely, I would iterate again, great job. We're very blessed to have you, and I look forward to another year.
Here, here. We have the motion to accept. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Seeing none, motion passes unanimously. We're so thankful. Thank you, Tom. Thank you for all you did, especially during COVID and getting us through this very unusual times. Thank you. So now is the agenda overview by the mayor. I am not the mayor. I am the Mayor Pro Tem. Mayor Boulay and his wife, they are on vacation, and I believe they are traveling the coast of California. So for tonight, I have the honor of filling in. And I would ask the council's agreement and consensus to agree to that we can combine some items on our agenda tonight. We can have hearings on items 25B and 25C together, and those include those are both the community block grant and Making Matters New Hampshire items. Is there any objection to that? Seeing none, those two items will be combined. And then also combining 3 agenda items related to the sale of the Employment Security Building, and that's 25E, 25F, and 25G, combining those together for the public hearings. Would there be any objection to that? Okay, seeing none, we will then proceed in that manner. So, any comments on the positive citizen comments? Seeing none.
Would you like a motion on the consent agenda?
I'm getting, that's my next item. So, Councillor
Reading your
Cutoff,
mind.
would you like to make a motion on the
I
consent?
would make a motion to
And I
accept
would-
the consent agenda.
And I would second that motion.
All right. Councillor Pierce seconds. So nothing has been removed from consent? So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, another unanimous vote. Thank you. So now we're in our public hearing phase. Madam Clerk?
The first item is a resolution appropriating the sum of $126,064.72 for the Hoyt Road, Whitney Road Intersection Improvement Project, CIP number 30, and accepting that sum of $126,064.72 in supplemental donations from Interchange Development LLC.
Thank you. Would you like to add anything, City Manager?
I would, thank you.
Okay.
On April 12th of this year, the City Council approved Resolution 9360, which authorized the city manager to enter into a development agreement with the Interchange Development LLC concerning a public-private partnership regarding design, permitting, and construction of certain improvements on Hoyt Road and Whitney Road in order to facilitate development of 43 acres of land located off 1 Whitney Road. This agreement was executed in May. In accordance with the terms and conditions of the development agreement, Interchange LLC is responsible for all costs of this project that are located in the town of Canterbury. Due to change orders associated with the design and permitting process, as well as construction bids for CIP 30, as received for the city's purchasing office in May, Interchange Development LLC's cost share for that portion of the project located in Canterbury has increased from $449,250 to $575,314.72, net increase of $126,064.72. Because Resolution 9363 anticipated Interchange Development's total cost for the project would be $49,250, the city must accept and appropriate the additional $126,064.72. Interchange Development has provided us with a check for the full amount. With these additional funds, the total budget is now $4,906,064.72, which the city is responsible for $4,330,750, and Interchange Development is responsible for $575,314.72, and I recommend you approve this item.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Are there any comments from the public? Anybody wishing to comment on this item?
Can I ask a question first?
Yes.
Thank you. So just to clarify, Mr. City Manager, there's no additional money that the city is going to be paying towards this as a result of this appropriation?
Let me rephrase that, if you
Sure.
don't mind, Councilor. When the change order for the project came in, there was additional cost for the city, there's an additional cost for the developer. The city's cost is covered by the contingency funds that you appropriated when you appropriated the total cost of the project. So you do not have to put any additional monies in that you have not already appropriated. The developer side, that was not the case. There was not enough dollars in there to cover that, so therefore they are providing those additional dollars. You'll accept those dollars and then pay those dollars out. So if that helps.
Thank you.
And final call, anyone from the public would like to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And now, next up is items 25B and 25C that we agreed to hear together.
So the first one is a resolution authorizing the city manager to submit an application in the amount of up to $25,000 and to accept and appropriate grant proceeds of up to $25,000 of community development block grant funds to conduct a needs assessment and feasibility study in conjunction with Making Matters NH DBA Concord Makerspace. Second is a resolution readopting the city's anti-displacement and relocation policy statement and procedures in support of the city's community development block grant application to the New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority.
Thank you.
Your Honor, members of the council, I'd like to ask Mr. Walsh and Mr. Brubaker to come forward and speak to these items.
Good evening, Your Honor and members of the council. Please bear with me as the following needs to be read into the public record. Community development block grants are available through municipalities through the New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority. Annually, up to $500,000 is available for economic development projects, up to $500,000 for public facility projects, up to $500,000 for housing projects, up to $500,000 for emergency activities, and up to $25,000 is available per planning grant study. All projects must directly benefit a majority of low and moderate income persons. An informational handout regarding all CDBG items being discussed tonight was included in the council packet for items 25B and C and available to the public. This is a proposed application to the New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority for up to $25,000 and 2021 CDBG planning study funds for Making Matters New Hampshire, aka Concord Makerspace. This has the purpose of hiring a consultant to conduct a needs assessment and feasibility study concerning technical assistance services for entrepreneurs in the capital region. Specifically, the study will identify the number of micro-enterprise small businesses within the region, current technical assistant resources, and support for systems for said businesses and gaps associated therewith, as well as develop a feasibility study and business plan to address identified gaps in technical support services for these businesses. As well, this plan outlined for the Anti-Displacement and Relocation policy statement. This plan outlines measures under the Uniform Relocation Act required for CDBG projects that involve any displacement or relocation of persons or businesses if the city were to undertake a CDBG project which involved displacement or relocation. They would have to follow this plan. The plan outlines measures they would take to find comparable, suitable housing for persons or businesses displaced or relocated. As this project is a planning study, it does not anticipate any displacement or relocation. So in short, this means that the city is applying for a CDBG planning grant on behalf of Concord Makerspace, or Making Matters New Hampshire. And this will be used to conduct a needs assessment and feasibility study for small business incubation. This will essentially follow up on a recommendation from the 2017 Chamber of Commerce report, and it will equip businesses, or it will equip the makerspace to provide direct technical support for small businesses, especially with those with 5 or fewer employees. It will also set up the makerspace to be eligible for more New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority funding through the Micro Enterprise Fund. And this will help properly staff and develop a business incubation program in the future. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions the council may have.
Questions? Councillor Pierce.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for taking the question. So if I understand what you're saying, this $25,000 will build on what the chamber report presented back in 2017. It's not duplicative of that report. Is that correct?
That is correct. It builds upon the recommendations of the report.
All right, thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you. Matt, do you have anything to add?
You covered everything. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Would anyone from the public like to testify on this matter? Welcome.
Good evening. This is my first time here.
Would you please come forward to the microphone? Thank you. And
My name is Sandra May. I'm the new treasurer at Making Matters New Hampshire. I'm here in lieu of our president, who is at home with his newborn son. But I just want to thank the council for your consideration of this proposal. For those who aren't familiar with Making Matters, we are a makerspace, but we also have a business incubation wing, and it's full right now. All of our private offices are full, and we momentarily had all of our artist cubes full. We believe that there is a need for small and middle income businesses support in the community. We would like your assistance in hammering out the details of where exactly that need lies, but we feel that we can be an integral part of meeting that need. And again, I thank the council for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any?
I would just like to thank her for her support and helping support downtown Petticoat and investment in that part of the city. It's vital, so I'm glad they're doing it.
And I had the privilege to do a tour about a year or so ago of the space, and it's just amazing how much, with artists and engineering, and they just have. You have so much there for someone who wanting to start up or be an artist or do a craft and have a small business. So if you haven't seen it, I suggest that you go and check it out. It's amazing. So thank you very much. All right. Anyone else from the public like to speak on this? Any questions from the council? Seeing none, we close the public hearing. And I just really quickly, I want to go back to the item 25A, the Hoyt Road, Whitney Road. We did have, the council was given testimony that came with our revised agenda from Mr. Roy Schweiker, so I just wanted to make sure you all have that and saw that. So thank you very much. Madam Clerk, 25D.
It's an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Title V Administrative Code, Chapter 35, Classification and Compensation Plan, Schedule D of Article 35-2, the Class Specification Index for Administrative Library Technician position.
Okay.
Your Honor, members of the council, we've taken a look at this position that is being brought before you with the library director and the human services director. And in recognition of the fact that the job has changed, we do this periodically with many jobs throughout the organization, but the few that change considerably will determine whether or not it needs a new classification, and that is the case here. So we're recommending that we change the title of the position to Administrative Library Technician, and that's the recommendation, changing it from a labor grade 11 to a labor grade 12.
Thank you. Any questions for the manager? Councillor Cutoff?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I'm going to get it right, I promise. Mr. City Manager, when it comes to reclassification of certain positions within the organization, are we doing that because we've seen in the market that there's been a change of this classification? Are we doing like a compensation study around that? And I mean, I know that these come to our attention almost every single month, that we have reclassifications. Is that how that information is coming about, that we need this, or is it the duties that the person is now taking on that causes that classification change?
There's constantly a changing in terms of, a lot of it has to do with technology and the changes in different aspects of the job. So I've asked the department heads to constantly keep a lookout for the positions throughout the organization, and as things change, it may not be enough immediately. We'll look at a classification and say it's close, but it hasn't changed. And as you know, doing this, there's a point system in place that we look at to determine whether or not it's changed enough that it requires a change in the classification. And what we find is when you have that combination with also an employee who steps up and takes on those additional responsibilities, I try to do almost all of these within the budget process itself, so you see them all at once, but occasionally there's a position here and there that I can't, because I stopped putting together the budget in February, so here we are in September. That's the heating system. It's not squirrels. Councilor McNamara was looking worried. So because of that, we decided to bring this one forward instead of waiting again until next May to do it, because I think it's appropriate. And we have looked at doing classification studies in the past, and the last time we did one, the city council said, next time do it yourself, because the city council is the one who ran it, and it was all encompassing. It took a couple of years, I think.
It was horrible, thank you.
He still remembers that. He was on the committee, I think. So we're doing it. But we do it, we also look at it in conjunction of that position with the rest of the department at the same time to make sure we're being fair. And then, of course, we look at it from an equity standpoint across the organization for that type of position. And this is kind of a unique situation.
Thank you. I appreciate your response.
Further questions for the city manager? Seeing none. Will anyone from the public like to testify on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. And, okay, now we have the sale agreements with the Flatley Company on the Employment Security Building, and we're going to have public hearings on 25E, 25F, and 25G together. Madam Clerk?
The first item is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a purchase and sale agreement amendment with the John J. Flatley Company concerning the sale and redevelopment of the former New Hampshire Employment Security property. Within the revised agenda you all received today, you did get additional public testimony from Roy Schweiker on that item. Second item is a resolution appropriating the sum of $150,000 to compensate the John J. Flatley Company for abatement of certain asbestos-containing materials at the former New Hampshire Employment Security property, CIP number 578, and authorizing the use of $150,000 in Economic Development Reserve funds for this purpose. You received a revised resolution and revised report on this item. And then the final one is a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for the sum of $27,500 in New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Brownfields Program grant funds, appropriating the sum of $27,500 for hazardous building materials abatement at the former New Hampshire Employment Security property, again CIP 578, and accepting the sum of $27,500 in New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Brownfields Program grant funds for this purpose.
Thank you. City Manager?
Your Honor, members of the
comments?
council, ask Mr. Walsh to come up and present these items.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. So you have the three items that are before you that were read by the clerk, including the replacement resolution for the $150,000. So by way of background, the city acquired the former employment security property on October 31st, 2014, nearly 7 years ago. Prior to acquiring the property, we did our normal and customary environmental due diligence. That due diligence included an asbestos survey of the existing building. That was completed in the summer of 2014. On May 17, 2021, after the City Council approved purchase and sale agreement at their May meeting, the city entered into a purchase and sale agreement with the John J. Flatley Company concerning the sale and redevelopment of the property. Under the terms of that agreement that we signed in May, the city was obligated to abate certain asbestos-containing materials at the building prior to closing as identified in the 2014 survey. The developer is responsible for demolishing the building after closing and constructing their development project. Subsequent to entering into the purchase and sale agreement, the city discovered additional asbestos-containing materials at the property which were not identified in the 2014 asbestos survey. The additional asbestos was discovered while the city was in the process of preparing our bid specifications to go forward under the terms of the purchase and sale agreement. The majority of the newly discovered asbestos is on the exterior of the building and includes components of the large blue exterior curtain wall along South Main Street, which was missed during the 2014 survey. Because of the nature of the additional exterior asbestos, it's best to have those materials handled simultaneously with the demolition of the building, which the developer will be doing after their closing. The developer had indicated that they would not proceed with the project if they were to bear the responsibility of dealing with these newly discovered asbestos-containing materials. As such, the city and the developer over the last couple of months have been working towards a resolution on this item, and we have negotiated an amendment to our purchase and sale agreement to address the additional asbestos at the property. Under the terms of the amendment for the purchase and sale agreement, the city is going to be obligated to abate all the interior asbestos that we discovered while we were doing our supplemental asbestos survey this past spring. The developer shall handle all exterior asbestos at the building while the building is being demolished. To assist the developer in this new additional responsibility, the city will make a payment of $150,000 to the developer at the time of closing to assist with those asbestos obligations on the exterior of the building. To support these efforts financially, the city administration recommends the following. The first is to accept and appropriate $27,500 in additional Brownfields grant funds from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. With this appropriation, the city will have a total available of $400,000 for us to handle our interior asbestos obligations at the property, $200,000 of which are grant funds from the state of New Hampshire. I can tell you that we bid asbestos, the interior asbestos abatement on Friday, received bids from 3 contractors. We are comfortably within our $400,000 budget, so I'm very optimistic that we'll be able to get it done within that budget. The other item before you tonight is to accept and appropriate $150,000 from certain third parties for asbestos abatement. This additional $150,000, which is coming from non-city sources, from other third parties, will be the dollars that we use to provide $150,000 payment to the John J. Flatley Company at closing to assist them with the exterior abatement of the asbestos that was discovered in the spring. And they will handle that when they go forward with demolition. The developer, I spoke with the developer today. The developer is prepared to move forward with the project pending completion of their due diligence and permitting process. They are prepared to also handle the additional asbestos obligations that are being put on them. We anticipate that the project will go forward this fall and into the winter with permitting and due diligence. We anticipate that a closing would likely happen in March of 2022, so this coming spring. Construction, which would start with demolition and asbestos abatement, would start in the spring, and the developer would complete the project in the summer of 2023, which is the same schedule that we already had with the developer. In closing, accepting these funds and approving the amended, the purchase and sale agreement amendment with the John Flatley Company is in the city's interest as follows. First, the developer's project moves forward, which is important. Secondly, when it's completed, the developer's project results in a new 80,000 square foot building with 64 apartments valued at $8 to $10.25 million and will generate $215,000 to $275,000 in property taxes annually. The schedule for the project has not changed. The developer's project will still be completed in the summer of 2023. The sale price for the property is unchanged. The city will get the same amount of money as we negotiated with the developer on the current purchase and sale agreement. Lastly, and most importantly, there are no, and I will repeat, no additional city funds that are going into this project, whether they be TIF or other funds from the city. Specifically, the 27.5 that I mentioned earlier is a grant from the state of New Hampshire. The additional $150,000 are contributions from third parties to help get the project done. And with that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
All right, we'll start, Councillor Cutoff.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Walsh, under the previous agreement that we had prior to us deciding not to move forward, the city was going to take that building down. And at that time, we did not know about the asbestos on the outside. If we'd have continued in an arrangement like that, we would have consumed that entire $150,000 additional in taking the building down. Is that correct? Sort of? So he's got that sort of look on his face.
I'm going to use the city manager's expression from earlier, if I could rephrase. Essentially what would have happened is, under the previous development agreement with Dolsol Properties LLC, yes, the previous developer, yes, the city was obligated to take care of all asbestos at the property and tear the building down. This additional asbestos would have been discovered during that process, and we probably would have gone through a similar process with the third parties to resolve the asbestos issue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Councillor Cutoff.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to this project getting underway. I think it's going to make another dent in our inadequate housing in the city. And I want to thank you, Matt, for your skillful negotiating to come to this point.
Thank you as a team effort, but we're happy to be at this point.
Thank you, Matt. Any further questions for Mr. Walsh? See none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone from the public like to speak on these 3 items at this time? And it's on the revised resolution, which you all received. No one wants to speak on these items, so okay. Seeing that, I close the public hearing. Okay, that brings us to our public hearing action. Madam Clerk.
So the first item is a resolution appropriating the sum of $126,064.72 for the Hoyt Road-Whitney Road Intersection Improvement Project, CIP number 30, and accepting the sum of $126,064.72 in supplemental donations from Interchange Development LLC for this purpose.
Councillor Todd moves approval, seconded by Councillor Chaplin. So this is a 2/3 vote, because this is an item that was not in our budget. So we'll need to do a roll call.
You actually don't need a roll call as long
Okay.
as there's 2/3, yeah.
All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous, so 2/3. Motion passes. 27.
Is a resolution authorizing the city manager to submit an application in an amount of up to $25,000 and to accept and appropriate grant proceeds of up to $25,000 of community development block grant funds to conduct a needs assessment and feasibility study in conjunction with Making Matters New Hampshire, DBA Concord Makerspace.
Move approval.
Second.
Councillor Nyan moved approval, seconded by Councillor Todd. Yeah, thanks. And this also is a 2/3 vote. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous, the 2/3 passes. Item number 28.
Is a resolution readopting the city's anti-displacement and relocation policy statement and procedures in support of the city's community development block grant application to the New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority.
Move approval.
Second. Moved approval by Councillor Chaplin and seconded by, who's over here?
Everyone over here.
Everyone over here. Councillor Todd. So it has been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous? Passes.
Next item is an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Title V, Administrative Code, Chapter 35, Classification and Compensation Plan, Schedule D of Article 35-2, Class Specification Index for Administrative Library Technician.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved approval by Councillor Kennison, seconded by Councillor Mattson. All those in, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, hearing none, the motion passes. It's unanimous. Okay, item 30.
Is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a purchase and sale agreement amendment with the John J. Flatley Company concerning the sale and redevelopment of the former New Hampshire Employment Security property.
Move approval.
Second. Moved approval by Councillor Kennison, seconded by Councillor Mattson. Any discussion? Councillor Fennessy.
I would just like to echo some of what Councillor Kennison said in her earlier statement. I want to thank the city manager, Matt Walsh, and his team as well. Obviously, when we learned about this issue, it kind of put what we thought was a good project on hold for a little bit, but everybody from the team jumped in, we got to a resolution, and I'm very satisfied with where things have ended up, and I'm looking forward to supporting this.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Against? Seeing none, the motion passes. Unanimous again. 31.
So the revised title that you will be acting on is a resolution accepting and appropriating the sum of $150,000 for abatement of asbestos-containing materials at the former New Hampshire Employment Security property, CIP number 578.
Move approval.
Second.
So approved by Councillor Nyan, seconded by Councillor McNamara. And once again, what we're voting on is the revised resolution and report dated September 1st, 2021. This is also a 2/3 vote. So the motion has been made and duly seconded. Any comment? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Seeing none, unanimous, motion passes, 2/3. Okay. 32.
Is a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for the sum of $27,500 in New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Brownfields Program grant funds appropriating the sum of $27,500 for hazardous building materials abatement at the former New Hampshire Employment Security property, CIP number 578, and accepting the sum of $27,500 in New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Brownfields Program grant funds for this purpose.
Okay. Motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made by Councillor Krkovich and seconded by Councillor Chaplin, and this is also a two-thirds vote. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve? Councillor Chaplin, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I just want to second what Councillor Kennison and Councillor Fennessy said. In particular, I want to underscore Councillor Kennison's comments about the much-needed housing that this is going to bring to the downtown and to Concord in general. I think that we need to recognize that market rate housing provides housing, but it also often frees up lower income housing as people move up the ladder and move into the more increased available spaces. I also think that this particular motion highlights, and so I want to recognize the city staff's skill at seeking out other sources of funding. The $200,000 from the Brownfields grant is a great achievement and really contributes to minimizing the impact upon our property taxpayers. So thank you to the city staff.
Thank you for those comments. Further comments? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimous with the two-thirds vote required. And I'd just like to echo what everyone, the council has said. This is well done with the staff of coming forward with a project that will not only provide housing, but also add some vitalization to our downtown and help keep the downtown healthy. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tom. So with that, we have no reports. And that brings us to new business. Any new business? Councillor Rice-Hawkins?
Okay, thank you. In a moment here, I'm going to make a motion to have the City of Concord start to refer to Indigenous Peoples Day in lieu of Columbus Day. But before I make that motion, I'd like to make a quick remark about it. This is not a hard decision to make. This change is made to honor, celebrate, and acknowledge the Indigenous peoples who've stewarded this land and its resources for hundreds of generations. This change has been advocated for decades. It helps to acknowledge the physical and cultural harm, genocide, and discrimination that Indigenous peoples have faced. In the spirit of social justice, equity, and equality, this is a change worth making, and it is in line with the Concord School District and several other New Hampshire communities. Please note when I make my motion, I am not making a motion to have a public hearing on this. I would actually like us to just pass this tonight and have it in place for this October. Many of you know that I am very big on having public input. Earlier this summer, we had the conversation about having a public input process about the American Rescue Plan dollars coming into the city. There was a point made at that time that the city council feels very strongly that it has the ear of the community and can make those decisions. But more to the point, the reason I'm not suggesting a public hearing here is that it's not our role to debate the validity of lived experiences of historically marginalized communities when they tell us that something is harmful to them. Making them relive the trauma year after year under the current day that we use is something that they have expressed again and again, in which counselors received communications on last year as well as this year. I think it's important that we act because our inaction speaks louder. And if folks will remember that last year we actually had the Pulios come in and do a native blessing for our council. And we had the discussion then about having a forward movement on this, that we're supposed to be part of the racial justice conversations. Since we have not had an opportunity to have that process, I would like tonight to make a motion that we refer to the second Monday in October as Indigenous Peoples Day in the City of Concord going forward. And I would thank you for your support.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded. I do have a question on, and it's a process question. Can we just vote on this tonight, or is this an ordinance change? I don't know if you want to bring up Mr. Kennedy. Then tell.
Sure. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, just be advised that our holidays are set forth in the city code of ordinances under section 34, the personnel section. I believe Columbus Day is a day that's listed, and so to change that under the ordinary course, you would follow your rules and state law and notice the change to the ordinance, which would require, at least under our rules, a public hearing. Under state law, you're required to notice the ordinance change.
Thank you, thank you. So we would have to have a public hearing. How quickly could you do an ordinance?
An ordinance of this type would take me, I don't know, I could name that tune, and no, very quickly. It's not a matter of time for me. It's just your council rules require you to notice it and then to put it on the council agenda. Typically what we do is it would be noticed in the October meeting and then would be on the council agenda for passage with a public hearing in November. That's the ordinary way that we would do it.
But I think, could we not, if we got the ordinance out, as you said, you could name that tune and get it out pretty quickly, have the ordinance out, and then have the public hearing in October?
Sure, we could notice it after this meeting, if the council wishes to do that, and notice it prior to the October meeting, which I believe is after the October holiday, but nevertheless, we could do that.
And still
I'd
have,
want to suspend the council rules. You could do that in October. Because typically what your rules do is you would notice it at a meeting.
Right.
So it would be at the October meeting is when you would notice the change to section 34 of the Code of Ordinances. And then you would have the hearing in November. So to do what you're suggesting, I would think that you would need to suspend the rules in October to have the vote in October.
okay, thank you.
Which you could do if you have a majority of the council do that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Keach?
Thank you, Pro Tem. I'm going to be voting against this proposal. I think it's short-sighted not to involve the community in the discussion. I think we're way ahead of ourselves if we just set this down for an ordinance change before we get input from our constituents. I don't necessarily disagree with the idea, but I want to hear from the community, and that process hasn't happened thus far.
Councillor Kennison?
Thank you. I don't see a reason to speed this up since we wouldn't be hearing it until after the holiday anyway. So I'd like to go through the regular process. I would support that. I agree with what's being put forward, but I'd like to go through the regular process.
Any other comments? Councillor Rice-Hawkins?
Thank you. So this is new information to me from the conversations that I had, not with you, but that I had, yeah, sorry, to be clear. So given that, I do believe, at least when I looked at the calendar earlier, that we did have a city council meeting listed on the calendar for later in September. I don't know if that is
Monday.
Yeah, so could we notice this and just add it to that agenda? Is that an option?
We have a, glad you brought that up. We have a RSA 53C public hearing where this council will be taking testimony relative to a new potential cable franchise entity to give Comcast a run for its money called Atlantic Broadband. So I suppose we could work with the clerk to add to that agenda to give notice to this ordinance change, if that's the will of the majority of the council. So I would want to vote on that tonight to put this on the council agenda for September 20th, and we could simply just notice it at that meeting. There wouldn't be any public testimony or anything needed like that. But we could certainly notice it at the September 20th council meeting, which I believe is at 5:30.
It is, yeah.
Correct.
Are you suggesting put it on there for an October public hearings?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So we could do something like that. But again, I'd want a vote of the council tonight to make sure that everyone's comfortable doing that.
Councillor Kretovic?
Thank you. I do have just a couple of concerns. I mean, Columbus Day, in and of itself, when it first became a holiday, was really about discovery. This was a person that traveled west instead of east, and that was originally what the intention was of this holiday. It became something that our Italian-American immigrant population held onto as a celebration at a time when they were being oppressed because they were short and because they were of a dark color. And I would hate to replace one holiday by suppressing another segment of a population. In Canada, they celebrate Indigenous Day on the summer solstice because it aligns with the growing period. I would love to see our community come together to not oppress one segment of a population, to be able to highlight the huge accomplishments of our Native American population. And I know that this is not coming from us, that this is coming from our Abenaki community here, asking that we change Columbus Day to be Indigenous People Day. But I think that Councillor Keach is right. Our community needs to step up. We need to hear what our Italian American population would think of a change like this. I don't want to oppress one to highlight one, is where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Further comments? Councillor Champlin?
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kredovic's thoughts were very similar to mine. First of all, I would like to go through the due process. I would like to give our community an opportunity to weigh in on this. Most of you know, or a lot of you know, that I grew up in Rhode Island. Rhode Island, in the corner of Rhode Island where I live, well, all of Rhode Island, has a very large Italo-American population. And in my small corner of Rhode Island, the Columbus Day Parade is a source of pride for the Italian-American community. My uncle has been my late uncle was the Grand Marshal of the parade one year. His daughter, my cousin, was Grand Marshal after his death. You know, the history of Columbus Day in this country, not to correct Councillor Kretovic, but the first official Columbus Day in the United States was declared by President Benjamin Harrison in 1892, and it was in reaction to 11 Italian Americans being lynched in New Orleans, Louisiana. And so it was actively lobbied for by Italian American organizations who wanted to counter the negative prejudices against Italian Americans. You know, when they came in on Ellis Island and they didn't have papers, they printed WOP on their paper, on their incoming papers, to indicate without papers, and that became a derogatory remark. And so, similar to Councillor Kretovic, you know, I realize that many of Italian Americans, to many Italian Americans, Columbus is really incidental. What it's really about is celebrating the achievements of the Italians in our midst, whether it's Marconi, or whether it's Enrico Fermi, or whether it's Joe DiMaggio. And so, again, my thoughts are similar to Councillor Kretovic's, is that what you're really doing is taking away, recognizing one minority group that has been persecuted in order to recognize another. And I absolutely agree with Councillor Rice-Hawkins' intent here. I absolutely agree. There has been a history of genocide, displacement, and appropriation of property that goes all the way back to the 17th century that really needs to be redressed and needs to be recognized. But my preference would be to have a combined day. Get rid of Columbus. You know, I would love to consider something like an Indigenous Americans, Italian American Day, and get Columbus out of here, because certainly the history shows that Columbus led the vanguard of a genocidal movement. And I specifically look at the history of the Spanish who followed Columbus, because he was there on behalf of the Spanish crown, in persecuting and enslaving Native American peoples in Mexico and in South America. So I very much support the intent, but I do have those concerns, and I would love to hear what the other members of our community have to say. Thank you, Your Honor.
Further comment? Councillor Pierce.
Thank you very much. Much has been said here, and I agree with much of it, but to Councillor Keach's point, I would like to see the regular order take place on this as we would with any other ordinance change, and solicit comments from the public on how they feel in our city. So I would just leave it at that.
Councillor Werner.
Just want a point of clarification. So even if we were to notice this and discuss it at September 20th, or notice it on September 20th, we still wouldn't be considering it until after the holiday.
That's correct.
Correct? Okay, so for that reason, I would support my colleague, Councillor Pierce, and feel the same. I think we should follow the regular process, because either way, it's going to be past the holiday when we consider.
May I ask a point of clarification on that?
Just let me get Councillor Grady Sexton.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I would absolutely support moving forward with the process that we have established, which is noticing and having public hearings for any ordinance changes. I'm concerned about what would stop a future council or government body from proposing something such as a white nationalist holiday in the future. And I would absolutely want the community to be involved and to provide feedback on something that was as egregious as I think that would be. And so I think it's very important to have public input and to make sure that we follow the process that has been established and that we have followed for as long as I've been seated at this table.
Thank you. Councillor Rice Hawkins?
What precludes us from noticing it tonight?
It's just our council rules that we'd want to follow, and that's the traditional way that, so if you read the council rules that are available to you and all the councilors, the way that we do it is we notice it at the meeting, and then at the following meeting, it would be acted upon.
Or I guess I'm mixed up, because noticing at this meeting and having the public hearing at September 20th meeting.
Right, we don't have the ordinance right now. I don't have.
Oh, you're saying because you would need to write it up versus a motion?
Right, so I would need to produce the document
Got
for
it.
the public to see, and then that's the notice. Like we could do September 20th, would be a time to notice the hearing.
So it would be a noticing, and then the document would be available, but the public hearing would be at the October council meeting. Okay. Councillor Fennessy.
Thank you. So I've always been confused why Columbus is celebrating America, since he didn't actually discover the land in which we all live. So I'm open to, whatever name we want to go by. But given the input that people have provided tonight, I think it's pretty clear we need to get some public input, because everybody's got slightly different ideas about what the holiday should be called. And I think the only way to have a proper discussion about that is to get public input, have an actual ordinance to consider, and have an opportunity for the community to see what the plan is. So while I appreciate Councilor Rice Hawkins bringing it forward, I think a process whereby we have some time to digest rather than trying to rush through and come up with a solution 3 weeks out would be, I think, a better way of doing it.
Councilor Kretovic.
Thanks. I do think it's appropriate to point out it's welcoming week, and we are a welcoming city. We voted on that many years ago, and our multicultural festival is this Sunday at Keach Park from 3 to 8. Might as well get that out there as well.
No, I think it's 11 to 4. 11 to 4, Keach Park. You'll be very alone, being welcomed.
And I'm drawing even more attention to the appropriateness of doing something like this on this week. And so I would fully support in October that we take this up in our normal process. Thanks.
Okay.
And happy welcoming week, everyone.
Any other comments from the council? Councilor Rice Hawkins?
Thank you. I will withdraw my motion for tonight. If somebody will guide me on what needs to happen, I make a motion for an ordinance to be drawn up.
So something like this is we have the Code of Ordinances that lists our holidays. My understanding now is the council's indecisive as to what the October holiday should be called. I could simply produce an ordinance with that current name stricken with a blank, or if there wants to be further discussion tonight, we could come up with a name, or October, we could perhaps come up with a name where the ordinance could be amended with that name.
Before we go any further, Councillor Rice Hawkins withdrew her motion, and that was seconded by Councillor McNamara. Do you also withdraw?
I do.
Okay, so there is no motion on the table at this point. Councillor Grady Sexton.
Thank you, Mayor Tem. I would like to make a subsequent motion that our city solicitor draft the ordinance change, and we set that on the agenda for the next meeting for a public hearing. Is that the correct procedure?
So have the ordinance on the September 20th meeting for a public hearing in October, and by that way, are we following our regular rules?
No.
No. So we have to do
the regular rules will be to
October.
November.
So may I make a motion to suspend the rules then, so that we can have the ordinance presented at the next regular meeting, so that could be set for October?
Well,
Mayor Pro Tem?
by suspending the rules, then again, we're again not following our usual manner of due process, and no matter how we do it, whether we suspend the rules or go in our ordinary chain of events, it's still after the fact of Columbus Day. So, I mean, you can make any motion you want. Personally, I think at this point in time, we should just follow the process we have in place, because whatever we vote on in October is after the fact. Councillor?
Thank you. I think I understood that you have some concern that the council doesn't really have a direction on what to even name the holiday. And that would have to be in the ordinance.
Right. So typically when I draft an ordinance, it's, or my office or the city, we bring to you the amendments because we know what the amendment should be. So now, from this interesting, very well-intended and good discussion, I'm unclear as to what the amendment should be. So, if at all. So, I guess that's where I'm at.
But we do have several members of the media that are here today, and they could actually reach out to the community and say, do you have any recommendations for the council on what they might rename this holiday if they wanted it renamed?
I think that makes it very difficult for our city solicitor.
Yeah, it does, but we're not going to meet the holiday this year anyway. Right. So what is the rush?
Perhaps a study committee.
Or a public hearing. One way was just to have an ordinance with the change to Indigenous Peoples' Day, and then we could always amend that or go.
Right.
Yeah, it could be the starting point. Councillor Grady Sexton, did you have something to add? Councillor Rice Hawkins?
Yeah, yes, thank you. And I definitely would like the ordinance to say Indigenous Peoples' Day. I think that we should be framing this discussion in the welcoming community that we are, and with honoring and acknowledging what Indigenous people have told us is a harmful phrase otherwise, and a supportive coming together going forward. So, correct me if I'm wrong here. I would like to direct the city solicitor to draw up an ordinance to refer to Indigenous Peoples' Day in City of Concord materials and ordinances.
Right, the holiday ordinance, which is in our personnel rules. So, correct. So the motion would be to direct the city to amend the Code of Ordinances to state Indigenous People Day instead of Columbus Day in our Code of Ordinances.
So moved.
So that would be posted in October, like and then the public hearing would be in November.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll second the motion so we can continue discussion.
Okay. So the motion has, I'm going to repeat this back. Councillor Rice Hawkins had made the motion to have a ordinance drafted that would change the Columbus Day holiday to the Indigenous Peoples Holiday Day.
Indigenous Peoples' Day.
Thank you. And that has been seconded by Councillor Todd. And it would be posted for the October agenda for the council, the public hearing to follow in November. Is that clear? Did I get that? Good. All right. Councillor Keach.
Thank you, Pro Tem. I'm going to be voting against this. I think it's very premature to draft an ordinance before we've even had a discussion about what it should be called, what it shouldn't be called. I think the process ought to be gathering input from our citizens, and there's absolutely no rush to this. And I just, with all due respect, Councillor, it just seems like you're trying to push this through quickly. And I think it's important that we do get input from our citizens, and you're circumventing that process.
Councillor Chaplin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I am going to vote in favor of the motion. I think that we are on track to have appropriate public comment. We're looking at 2 months lead up to this. As has already been mentioned, we have members of the press here, so I assume that this will be covered. And I hope that members of the Concord community will use this as an opportunity to come in November at our City Council meeting and express their opinions about which direction we go in and what we do.
Councillor Kennison.
Thank you. I'm also going to support the motion because I think it'll do exactly what you're saying. It will raise the conversation in the community. It doesn't mean we will ultimately settle on what the ordinance would say, but we need the discussion, and so I'm supporting it.
Councillor Lyon.
Thank you. I normally don't tell people how I'm going to vote before voting, but, you know, we're all kind of jumping on. I feel the same way Councillor Keach does. I don't even know what this is going to look like. Frankly, I've heard very strong arguments for Columbus Day relative to our Italian-American community. I respect the indigenous community. We've had discussions about cultural awareness this week. We may settle on Cultural Awareness Day in the city of Concord and encompass everybody. So to have a moniker on a day that we're suggesting a change seems a little premature. I suggest we follow the process, leave the name blank, and frankly, even leave the substance of what we're going to celebrate open to discussion, because frankly, where I'm at right now is we need to have something more akin to Cultural Awareness Day for the city rather than identifying one set or subset of group of people.
Councillor Kennison.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, but I think we could come to the same conclusion via the current motion, because we don't have to accept that it's going to be Indigenous Peoples' Day. We could decide, let's do Cultural Appreciation Day. But
Sure.
we could get there through that.
And while I appreciate that, then why is there an urgency to put a moniker to it? That's all. It just, I feel like we're rushing something rather than being thoughtful. And again, I think Councilor Grady said it pretty well. We have a process in place for a reason. It's to allow, you know, proper public notice. And if we, frankly, we're going to have a notice this at, sounds like a September 20th meeting.
No, Councillor.
Thank you, because one of the arguments I was going to make is that meeting may not garner all the attention that we would hope it would, that our normal meeting agenda is published in advance. It gives people plenty of time to talk about it amongst their friends. So I like the process. I like leaving it open, and let's have a really heartfelt discussion of what we want this city to celebrate the second Monday of the month of October.
If I have the motion correct, we are following the process. It will be duly noted in October, public hearing in November, but I think I heard the city solicitor say he needs to put something in the blank on the ordinance. He just can't present us an ordinance, and then we can have the discussion and word it any way we would like. Accept it, don't accept it, reword it. So. Councillor Pierce.
Quick question to that point, Mayor Pro Tem. When we decide on a name, if it is different, if we go forward with this, does that trigger another set of public hearings, or we can change it on the fly, if you will, and then have our regular vote?
No, you can amend it, and certainly you can also leave it blank. And I can present that ordinance to you with the report stating that the council will vote on a name at the upcoming hearing. The important thing is transparency and notice to the public so they know what the public hearing is going to be about. And so that would be certainly an option to leave it blank, or, as the motion says, to have it be Indigenous People Day with the report stating that there's going to be, based on this conversation here, a public hearing on the naming of the second day of October, if it's to remain Columbus Day, Indigenous People Day, or another day, subject to council approval at the November public hearing.
Councillor Todd?
Thank you, Your Honor. I think that my suspicion is that, in light of the information, that we really should follow the process, and I agree with that, having a public hearing, as we always do. I think that we're going to get a lot of public input, is my anticipation on this. And so the way I look at it is we have, 11 months to come up with an answer before the next year's holiday. So we may find that we need more time to gather additional input. We may find that we may need to create a committee or some other measure in order to get all the input we need and information we need to make this decision in a sensitive way. So that's kind of the way I look at it, is this is fine for me. That's why I seconded the motion to continue the discussion, but also that we can then change that title any way we see fit through the course of the discussion. Thank you.
Councillor Fennessy.
Thank you. I'm wondering, and I don't know if the Mayor Pro Temp has this answer or the city solicitor does, but is there another mechanism that we could use to simply put the public on notice that we want to change, that we want to consider changing the name without having to actually put forward an ordinance change? Can we just put it on the agenda as a topic for the November meeting, which, by the way, I think is appropriate with Thanksgiving coming up? Is there a mechanism to do that, or do we need to have either an ordinance in blank or an ordinance with a name that we are at least considering?
Could we have a public hearing that states that the council will be discussing on changing the Columbus Day holiday and have a public input?
Typically, what the council would do is create a committee to study this, and then that committee would conduct a public hearing on the ordinance. Bring that committee, which would be a public meeting, where you could go out and have that meeting, bring that information that the committee has. The committee then could offer an ordinance that could be considered by the council, and then then you would have the notice of that ordinance, and then it would go to a public hearing. So that would be the creation of a committee, or an existing committee. This could be referred to by the council.
Councillor Fennessy. Councillor Kennison.
Yeah. I don't think it's a good idea to put out an ordinance with a blank. If I remember the community, I'd say, what the are they doing? I mean, I'd be so confused. So I think we have to put a name out there, and I think we should get this show on the road and not set up a council committee beforehand. If we want to do that afterwards, I think that might be appropriate, but let's just deal with this and go home.
Councillor Rice Hawkins.
Thank you. I would also support that. I want to be real honest. 16 months ago, people on this council did not want to pass a statement around racial justice because they wanted to have community conversations. 16 months later, we have not had community conversations.
In a pandemic. Be sure to say in a pandemic.
Excuse me, let the councillor speak.
We were able to move the gas holder conversation on a very short time frame, and that included finances. So I want to be really honest that I am not interested in a blank ordinance. I am interested in what has been asked for since the 70s, 50 years ago, that I myself, 20 years ago, running an after-school program on Columbus Day, was asked by a parent of a Native student, is this about Columbus Day? Because if it is, my kid can't come because that is a genocide in our family, and we're not going to participate in it. If I knew 20 years ago, 50 years ago, the UN conversation, last year, around this time we had this conversation, we all got an email last week This is not hard, and I want to really emphasize, people hurt when they hear this, and there is a reason why, and people died and they were killed. This is not something that is up for public debate. Now, if we have to do an ordinance process, because that is how we do it, then let's do that, but let's be really honest about what we're talking about. Between now and then, I would like everybody to watch one of my children's favorite movies, Frozen 2. And in Frozen 2, they tell you, when you know better, you do better. What's the next best choice? This is not hard. In fact, this is so not hard that this is actually not what I want to spend my time on, because it is not hard to recognize and to listen to those who've been harmed and to do what they ask to make things a little bit better. So with that, I would really, really not like to do any kind of study committee. I would just like to move forward and have this conversation as our council committed that we would do for our city around issues like this. Thank you.
Further comment? Councillor McNamara.
I don't feel this is a rushed conversation. I agree that as an educator, we've been talking about this for years and years. Indigenous people were self-sufficient, they were thriving, and they were part of a successful community. And I think that's what we are today and what we strive to be. And I just don't want to prolong this. I agree that we can open this up to a community discussion. I would love to, I welcome the community to give their side and discuss this, but I don't want to give a blank name. But I do want to move forward without a lot of time and hesitation.
And so further comment, Councillor Chaplin.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I move the question.
You do?
I move the
Boy, there's a new motion. That is non-debatable. That is, wow, non-debatable. Wow. The mayor leaves and now you pull out all these other things.
I did it to him my first year.
Okay. So,
Was there a second?
There was. Second, and it's non-debatable. So. Power grab, that's exactly what it is. So, to get us back on track. So Councillor Rice Hawkins' motion, seconded by Councillor Todd, is to have the solicitor draw up an ordinance that would change Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples' Day. And that would be posted on our October agenda. And then the November council meeting would have the public hearing. And then that would be our starting point. And from there, we can go with the ordinance as written. We can end up, somebody could like move like a study or some other motion that you got in your pocket there, Councillor. Or we could, as a committee, come up with another holiday name. I will be supporting going forward with Indigenous Peoples' Day as an ordinance to give us a starting point. But just full disclosure, I do have Italian-American relatives. They live in East Boston. And I do understand the background of Columbus Day and how for them it's pride of their heritage because they were discriminated against because of their darker skin and also their religion for being Catholic. So I think we need to have the conversation and we might as well move forward with it and start the conversation. And where we end up, we end up.
Your Honor, could I ask for a roll call?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Is there a second? That needs a second. Is there a second to the roll call?
Second.
All right, everybody seconds. Okay. So.
I will start with Councillor Keach.
Do you want to just repeat the motion?
Oh, yeah. So the motion you're voting on was brought forward by Councillor Rice Hawkins to amend the current Code of Ordinances replacing Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples' Day, October agenda for November public hearing.
Okay.
Councillor Keach.
No.
Councillor Kennison.
Oh, yes.
Councillor Kretovic.
Yes.
Councillor Mattson.
Yes.
Councillor McNamara.
Yes.
Councillor Nyan.
Nope.
Councillor Pierce.
Yes.
Councillor Rice Hawkins.
Yes.
Councillor Todd.
Yes.
Councillor Werner.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bouchard,
Yes.
Councillor Champlin,
Yes.
Councillor Fennessy,
Yes.
Councillor Grady Sexton.
Yes.
So the motion passes
11 to
12 to 2.
12 to
right?
2.
Yeah.
Motion passes 12 to 2. So is everything clear for you? As clear as it can be from tonight's. Yeah. Thank you. And, you know, and I thank you for bringing up the discussion, Councilor Rice Hawkins, and I think for me, this is not just, for me, and considering, you know, my Italian relatives, I hope that we look at this as it's about the man and not the Italian population, and that we all also are aware that the indigenous people here in New England, especially around Cape Cod, on Thanksgiving, they celebrate a day of mourning because they don't look at the pilgrims the same way that we do. So there is a lot to share on our discoverers. So with that, we can move on. Okay, so we're down to comments and requests by mayor and city councilors. Councilor Chaplin.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to remind the community that on the weekend of Friday, September 24th, Saturday the 25th, and Sunday the 26th, we're holding the Capital Arts Fest in Concord. A lot of it will be downtown, anchored by a juried League of New Hampshire Craftsmen fair, but there also will be free music, entertainment. It kicks off, and also it'll be spread out throughout the city. Some events will be taking place at the Concord Makerspace, which we were speaking of earlier, Hatbox Theater, Kimball Jenkins as well. And in fact, the day kicks off at Kimball Jenkins at 6 p.m. on Friday the 24th, with events that include a ballet performance and at 8 p.m. a free outdoor movie. So it's a great weekend to be in Concord. Please think about attending and spread the word to your friends and family.
What's the movie?
I'm sorry?
What's the movie?
The movie is actually one of my favorites because it was filmed at Camp Yagu, which was the Boy Scout camp that I attended when I was a kid. And it's Moonrise Kingdom, which is a magical film. It's a really nice film.
Thank you. Councilor Mattson.
Yes, I would like to reiterate that there will be a multicultural festival on Keach Park, Sunday at 11. 11, let me repeat, 11 to 4.
Thank you.
Sunday. There you go.
Anyone else? Councilor McNamara.
I would like to recognize a community member, George Ash. If you know George, he gets up every morning at 4:30, at least in the summertime, Monday through Friday. And you'll see him on Green Street. He cleans the curbs on both sides of the street, down Green Street, from, I think he starts at Rumford, and I know that he goes all the way to Center. Sometimes he cuts down behind the police station, but he has a cart and a bucket and a broom and gloves, and he sweeps the curbs because he feels it's his duty as a civic duty, and I just think he's pretty special for doing that. So, George Ash, he says, quote, "It gives me something to do, and I'm giving back." So, way to go, George.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for letting us know that. Councilor Werner? Did you have your hand up?
Thank you, Your Honor. So reference was made to Welcoming Week earlier. Thank you,
You're welcome.
Councilor, for doing that. It's very important. I think it's very important in the time that we're in, as we know that there will be Afghan evacuees coming to New Hampshire. A number of those, maybe up to 100, will be relocated here in Concord. I think that strengthens our community. I hope that we will continue to be a welcoming community. Given our involvement in Afghanistan over the last 20 years, I feel very strongly that we have a responsibility to these folks who are seeking refuge. So let us, as Lincoln said, appeal to the better angels of our nature at this time as we welcome new members of our community and help them become part of our community.
Thank you. Councilor Cutoff.
Mayor Pro Tem, in the mayor's absence, are you taking all community calls? Is that a?
Community calls?
When the
You have a call?
Yeah, when the community calls. He
Like
does
a
take a lot of
Ghostbuster.
input. Would the community be correct to reach out to you in the mayor's absence?
The mayor will be back on Monday.
That's a flat no.
So between now and Monday, I guess so, huh? I'll go through Tom. Tom will then
Yeah,
contact
generally,
me.
what happens is people reach out to the mayor, they're generally reaching out to the city clerk, who then makes sure that information gets to the mayor.
I just
So,
want to
yeah.
check because
That's how
I'm
it
going to
goes.
get a call.
You have issues, or?
I'm going to get a call and they're going to want redirection. I know. Thank you so much. I
Thank you
appreciate
so
that.
much. All right, so I think I got lost here. Anyone else? Yes, Councillor Rice Hawkins.
The library has really cool take and make art kits for kids that they're doing this month with a focus on bees and pollinators. And there's a great pollinator garden that was installed at Merrill Park this summer. I believe maybe Rolfe Park is the other one. The second one's been installed.
There's one
It's at
also
Beaver Meadow.
Beaver Meadow.
There's one at Keach.
At Keach. And so it just thought it was fun that the library's got those kits. They do their crafting, but they've got all week or all month long. You can go and get a kit, pick it up for your kids, and do a lesson plan.
Thank you. Any other comments? The only thing I have is that we do have our next city council meeting on Monday, the September 20th at 5:30 p.m. And the purpose of the meeting will be to hear and discuss the Atlantic Broadband proposal for cable. As you all know, currently we have a contract with Comcast. So that's what we'll be discussing on Monday night at 5:30, and I hope you'll all be here. Anything else?
Make a motion, we adjourn?
Oh, wait. There's one more item.
You short
Comments
timers.
and requests from the city manager.
I'll be really quick. So, we have received information from the National League of Cities about a meeting. They have, there'd be two series of meetings. One would be with the city council, and one would be with staff. The earliest they can meet with staff is the middle of December, and they have not set a date for when they can meet with city council. The reason for that is because we told them that you folks would wanted to do this in the evening if you could. Otherwise, you'd have to take off. You'd all have to take off from work and spend a day doing this. So we're still waiting to hear. But even we can do it during the day. Obviously, staff can, and the earliest they can meet with us is the middle of December. So because what they're doing is they're scheduling. They have a program they're scheduling throughout the entire country. They provide support services to many communities throughout the entire country. So they're trying to figure out how to get everybody in for the training services that we've requested. So, as soon as I find out about when they can meet with the city council, I'll be sure to let you know so you can schedule the times. But it's pretty far out there.
Any questions? Seeing none, Councilor?
It may not be apparent, Mr. City Councilor, people in the public and watching on TV, but that's in regards to our diversity initiative, is that right?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, and you're done?
I'm done.
All right. So, Councillor Kennison, do you move to adjourn?
Second.
Second by Councillor Fennessy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Another unanimous vote. Thank you very much. See you in September, Monday.
I know they stay.